Turn off Highway 29 into PEJU Winery, and for a moment Napa Valley stops behaving normally. The driveway is lined with pale trunks that curve like enormous walking sticks. Their leaves gather high overhead. The tower waits at the far end. It feels less like arriving at a tasting room than entering somebody's very elaborate daydream.
Visitors often call them the Dr. Seuss trees. The resemblance is funny, but the facts matter. There is no documented Dr. Seuss connection. These are not truffle trees, and they are not pines. They are American sycamores, patiently trained into living sculpture.
Here is the fanciful version, and here is the real driveway. Honestly, reality hardly needs the help. The trunks already lean, twist and repeat with the strange rhythm of a drawing. The joke gets people to look. The true story explains why the trees are here at all.
Tony and Herta Peju bought this 30-acre Rutherford property in 1983 after running floral shops and a nursery in Southern California. Tony arrived with a horticulturist's eye and a designer's stubbornness. He believed a winery should begin telling its story before a guest opened the car door.
In 1986, Tony planted the sycamores along the driveway. Peju says he pruned them twice each year for decades, training their growth into the dramatic Arlay visitors see today. Wind, sun, and ordinary tree biology did their share too. The result is collaboration, 1 part nature, 1 part patience, and 1 part refusal to leave well enough alone.
Most wineries put a sign at the entrance. Tony Peju grew one. A grapevine is pruned and trained to shape what it becomes. Tony treated the sycamores much the same way, except his trellis was the sky, and the project would take most of a lifetime.
The vineyard beside the driveway makes the comparison visible. Low vines are trained for fruit, season by season. High sycamores are trained for arrival, decade by decade. Both depend on cuts made now for a shape that will not appear until later.
Tony's habit of designing the future did not stop with the trees. In 1981, before the family even bought the Rutherford estate, he commissioned architect Calvin Strobe to draw a winery tower. The tower appeared on early labels before visitors could walk inside it.
Most people build the winery and then design the label. Tony apparently regarded that order as a suggestion. The first phase opened in 1991. Tower construction began in 2002, and in 2003, the 50-foot landmark finally opened its doors.
Inside is another object that spent years waiting for Tony's building to catch up with his imagination, a stained glass window made in Germany in 1906. Tony bought it at auction in 1993. Its pieces reportedly waited in a barn until the tower could receive them.
The window is roughly 10 feet by 20, musicians in a radiant garden suspended above rows of wine. It is almost a blueprint for the Peju experience. Horticulture, art, bottles and performance occupying the same room.
And for years, after the strange trees pulled you up the driveway and the tower drew you through the door, Peju had one more surprise behind the tasting bar. His name was Alan Arnopole, though many guests knew him as the Yodelmeister.
Alan had spent decades as a working musician, including time with the Americana band California Zephyr. Wanting fewer nights on the road and more nights with his family, he answered Tony Peju's newspaper advertisement in 1995.
Alan later said he thought he had bombed the interview. Tony hired him anyway, not for encyclopedic wine knowledge, but for his smile. It may be the most Tony Peju hiring decision imaginable. Start with the human experience, then build the rest.
At first, Alan gave ordinary tastings. Within a month or two, the performer began escaping into the wine educator. He improvised songs and rhymes about the guests in front of him. He folded tasting information into comedy. He yodeled in the tasting room and discovered that winery vessels had excellent acoustics.
He called it Vintertainment. There was the Yodelmeister, the Vintertainer, and for some Japanese visitors, Yodel-san. His signature educational number was the Napa Winery. A person could arrive expecting Cabernet and leave with a geology lesson delivered as a rap.
The important part was not eccentricity for its own sake. Alan made wine less intimidating without making it less interesting. The joke was never on the guest. The guest was invited into the performance, and no two performances had to be exactly alike.
That is why this photograph matters. Alan is not posed on a distant concert stage. He is standing beside the tasting bar, guitar in hand, bottles behind him. The classroom, the theatre, and the winery are all the same place.
Visitors might remember a Cabernet's dark fruit, the snap of acidity or the shape of its tannin. But they also remembered the improvised rhyme with their name in it, the laugh that loosened the room, or the yodel echoing back from a tank. Alan turned tasting notes into memories with a soundtrack.
Look again at the musicians in the stained glass, then at Alan with his guitar. The rhyme feels almost too perfect. Tony built a room where art promised music. Alan supplied it in real time.
PEJU's design works as a sequence. First, the sycamores bend expectation. Then the tower makes imagination physical. Then a host turns strangers into an audience. Landscape, architecture, and hospitality are not separate departments here. They are 3 acts of the same show.
The real craft is repetition. Trees shaped twice a year, vines pruned every winter, bottles stacked and opened. A performer reading a new group of faces, then inventing the right line for that afternoon. Delight looks spontaneous when somebody has practiced it for decades.
The Dr. Seuss resemblance may be an accident, the delight is not. Tony trained the sycamores for decades. He imagined a tower before he owned the land. Alan spent decades turning a tasting bar into a stage.
PEJU's most distinctive achievement is not simply a winery that looks like a fantasy. It is the understanding that the best winery visits become stories. The strange thing you saw, the person who made you laugh, and the bottle that brings the whole afternoon back.
So the next time those pale trunks curl over the driveway, enjoy the joke. But keep driving. The trees are the hook. The tower is the set, and waiting inside, at least in the memories of thousands of visitors, is a man with a guitar, ready to make the tasting sing.
At PEJU, even the entrance has a punchline, but the lasting impression is warmer, imagination, cultivated patiently, until a place becomes a story people carry home.